Okay, so we're excited. Baruch Hashem, the Pri Haaretz does not start. We're zeichet to learn it, and the Pri Haaretz doesn't really start on Parshas Bereshis, as we were joking about it last week on Shabbos. That the Pri Haaretz on Parshas Bereshis is basically an hour of silent meditation, recognizing, Gavalt, we don't even begin, but or we do begin, but we begin so deep, like anything that we could say won't even bring it all the way down. But our goal over here, Be'ezrat Hashem, is to work through the Pri Haaretz this year. We started working through it last year, and it's tremendous. The mapping out of how to move through different worlds, how to do mitzvot, how to direct our consciousness, and to even just to work on different things is so powerful in its level of mapping things out. For example, in today's world, we have a lot of teachers that are teaching, okay, how do you tap into meditation? How do you work through the basics of what your nefesh, your ruach, your neshama is? But when you go back further, you don't really see these things mapped out clearly. And yet here you have a Talmud of the Mezritch Magid, Reb Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, who met the Baal Shem Tov, and his sefer is so deep and beyond, but so down to earth, teaching us like the basic mappings. And every week the piece starts off. It begins with the psukim and the ideas that he's going to slowly work his way through, but then he like leaves that on the side, and then he go on a whole understanding of, he explains the concept, and then he puts it back in either to explain the pasuk or to explain the ideas of the pasuk, and then that's the basic road that he goes down. But these pieces are amazing. Baruch Hashem that we were connected, we're able to learn his Torahs, and Bezrat Hashem, it should be a good year for all of us, and we should be able to be zocheh to really to connect to the tzaddik and to connect to his Torahs, and obviously connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is really what the tzaddikim are trying to do, and they're trying to connect us to. All right, Parshas Noach. Eila told us Noach, right? The parsha starts off. These are the children of Noach, and then immediately says, Noach ish tzaddik tam haya b'dareisav. Noach was a tzaddik. He was righteous in his generation. Perish Rashi Zal, and Rashi immediately explains, well, if you're telling me that these are the children of Noach, why don't you tell me the children of Noach, which is Shem, Cham, and Yafes? Why are you telling me that he was a tzaddik? It's to teach us that the main children, the main offsprings, the main peros that a person has in this world are not even his physical children, but rather they're mamish, they're his physical, his actions, his ma'asim tovim, his what he's able to actually produce himself. Right? In a way, if you think about it, it's so I don't remember who it was who I just listened to was sharing this. He said, it's one thing to say, like, a person creates a child, so there are two other shutfim, right? You have your spouse, and they are just doing the bringing the physical down, but on a deeper level, your mamish bringing, it's Hashem who's really giving the chayim and the soul to the child. So, but when you do a ma'aseh mitzvah, you are mamish the tzinar for the whole thing. And we're actually going to see in the Pri Haaretz how he's going to tap into what it really means. What is the depth of what it means to create children and to bring something down from the Ein Sof into this world? Just like we bring a child, we do the physical action, but there's an neshama and there's a consciousness that comes down to the world. So too, really, all of our actions are going to have that. Bezrat Hashem, we're going to see it as we move along. So now he's going to begin to open up an idea, and that we're going to begin to understand about. But the first thing that he's going to add in one more little knetch. Ha'ininu drashas Chazal, right? It says in Chazal, we know there's a kapitel Tehillim, Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach ba'atzas Hashem u'v'derech chataim lo amad, right? U'v'moshav leitzim lo yashav. Praise is the man that he didn't go with the Rishaim, and he didn't sit with the chotem. So the Medrash Rabbah on our parsha says like this: Ashrei ish, praises the man, Noach. This is Noach. Asher lo halach ba'atzas Rishaim, that didn't go in the pathways of Rishaim, Dora Mabel, right? Because they were Rishaim. Uvederech chataim, and in the ways of sinners, lo halach Dora Flaga. Okay, so I have to see like what is the connection to each one. It's beautiful pshat, but what is the depths of this medrash? Okay, now we're going to leave these two things on the side that told us Noach and this medrash, and we're now going to enter into the world that the Pri Haaretz is going to paint for us. V'sharish advar. the essence, the root of the things that we're going to explain over here now is that the Yiras mitzvah. There's something called Yira of a mitzvah, right? We know about Yiras Shamayim, Yiras Chet. There's also something called Yiras mitzvah. What is Yiras mitzvah? Adam is boning lios ma'aseh mitzvah inyan elakus kayidua. When a person begins to think to himself and goes, you know something, mitzvahs are mamish elakus, right? Hashem in his infinite wisdom said that I should do a mitzvah, gevalt, and he put it in the Torah. Wow, that's a really godly thing. There's something called a mitzvah. But look at me. When I begin to do the mitzvah with my hands, with my mouth, with my body, with my physical actions, and I begin to think with tashmish mitzvah gamkein gashmiim, and even the actions, and I take a lulav and an esrog, and I go, what is wrong with me? How in the world can I go and I take Torah and godliness and just bring it down to a level where I'm just doing a physical action? I'm waving a palm frond around in a little hut, and that's supposed to be something special? What in the world is wrong with me? How dare I even think that I'm doing something special and holy? Is God physical? Am I making God into a physical experience? Like, what am I doing with myself? And Baruch Hashem, we're all Talmidim of Panemius, so I obviously understand that this isn't it alone. Meaning, we know that there's a Panemius to every mitzvah, but still, sometimes do we find ourselves getting caught up in the Ma'aseh mitzvah, and we might even say on a more dakos level, on a more fine-tuned level, is when I'm doing a mitzvah, we sometimes should find that we should frighten ourselves. We should experience a yira, an awe, and ask ourselves, am I doing a mitzvah just on a chitzoni level? Am I actually just muttering words when I'm coming to daven? Am I actually just waving a branch around when I'm doing a mitzvah in the sukkah? Am I actually not connected and just doing it on a very physical level? And does that mean that I think that I can connect to God on a physical thing? Am I bringing God down just to the level of Gashmi? Is that what Avodas Hashem really is? Just to point out the idea of Yira, because we can easily, we also should tune in just to the depths of what Yira really means. A great man once explained that Yira is the experience that you have if you walk into a room and you don't think that anybody's there. Imagine you walk into a room with people that and somebody that you love dearly. You're not afraid of this person. You're not frightened by this person. This person's not intimidating, but you think you're alone in the room. Maybe you walk into your bedroom and you think that nobody's home. And suddenly you notice that there's somebody sitting on the chair and you jump because suddenly the awareness of an other makes us go into like that. But immediately we see Gewalt, like the person who's there is somebody that I love so much, and it's Gewalt, so good to see them. But that Yira, that experience of recognizing, oh my gosh, I thought I was alone and there's an other. And that's mamish what Yira is. Yiras Hashem is the experience of suddenly I am aware that there's an other here, and it makes us go into a state of shock. And that shock actually will, as we're going to see soon, can actually open us up to something much deeper, and it can open us up to the next experience of building a relationship, right? We're going to see in a minute from the Pri Haaretz how without an awareness, without Yira, that there is an other, even if you think that you're having an experience of Ava, you're not really having it. We know that you always have to do, I'm speaking out a little bit of what the Pri Haaretz is going to explain in a moment, but it's important to hear it, that without the recognition of an other, thinking that I'm in a state of Ava could very easily be a dimyon. Before I recognize that, if I immediately jump and I just think, wow, I'm with Hashem, it's Gewalt. But if you didn't first have the experience of Yiras Shamayim, of Yiras Hashem, of awe and awareness and, whoa, there really is an other here, you can't really have that experience of Ava. And so too, when we're dealing with another person, right? And if you don't have the awareness of the other in the room, you can't get to that experience of Ava, of connection, of ichud, of oneness. So back to where we were. is that when a person begins to do a mitzvah, a person goes through the experience of what we call Yiras HaMitzvah. And Yiras HaMitzvah is, oh my gosh, what am I doing in this mitzvah? Am I just doing a physical action? And is that my relationship with God? And after he has this jolt, like he has the different times when he's doing his mitzvahs, he immediately begins, instead of getting lost in the fact, oh my gosh, what am I doing a mitzvah that's disconnected from God, but rather he inspires, he's mitchazek, he strengthens himself with emunah in Hashem. That what? She'ha'emunah hu is kashrus v'divrei Elokim chayim. That every time that we do a mitzvah, we are connecting to mamish, the word of the living God himself. Min haratzon ha'elyon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his infinite wisdom, in his state of infinity, beyond anything that we can even begin to comprehend. And yet, through the hishtalshalos of all the olamot, now he's given to me a very clear and concise mitzvah, saying, this is what I want you to do. Gevalt, that's an opportunity to connect. Right? That Hashem said what he wants, and by me fulfilling this mitzvah, I mamish can connect up. And so it comes all the way min haratzon ha'elyon, and it comes from the highest place of Keser Elyon ad soif hishtalshus magdregas hashvalim. And Hashem's ratzon comes all the way down to telling me what type of branches he wants me to wave around on Sukkot. And as you begin to think about this, and we've learned some things along the way, maybe we don't have all the connections from Keser Elyon all the way to the Ma'aseh Mitzvah, but we've learned about some of the inyanim, about what lulav is, and what hadassim are, and what a ravis are, and what an esrig is, and we've learned about some of the halachos surrounding it, and I begin to realize and connect all of the different hislabshuyos, the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his essence, has chosen for me to behave in this place. And it comes all the way down until we see that Hashem wants to be mashra shchinasa. He wants to have a manifested experience of him through a physical action. As we know that every mitzvah really is a manifestation of the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah means Hashem's manifested presence, the experience, the external experience of godliness himself in this moment. That's what an experience of a mitzvah is. V'slabshus hashchina begashmi. This is slabshus, this experience of Hashem manifesting and enclothing himself in the physical. What's the purpose of it? We know. Hu avuris kashrus kol hagashmi imashvalim ayidei yivara v'asukim b'maaseh mitzvah. The whole reason why God chose this is because God wanted us to go into a world of physicality. And through doing a mitzvah, our physical bodies, our physical possessions, all the physicality that we are coming into relationships with, we're able to connect it back up. Because Hashem didn't want us just to experience him on a very high and holy level. He wanted to bring it all the way down so we could have what we call a dira b'tachtoinim, that we can have an experience of God in the lowest parts of ourselves, right? We're not meant to just run away and just have an intellectual experience of God, or even just a spiritual experience of God. But Hashem wants us to manifest it in the guts, in the physicality, in our hands, in our bodies, in our possessions. That's what we're here for. Umiskashrim, and how do we connect the physicality, the chitzonius, the guf of the mitzvah? Derech hashtalshalos amidas, right? First, it works its way through the midot, right? Meaning, so I open up my emotions and my behaviors. And then we have vidas binasai. We raise ourselves up to the level of awareness, of an intellectual awareness, of understanding why Hashem chose it to be this way, until we go all the way up to shirish maitzam. And we go back, so we go from the malchus, the ma'aseh mitzvah, that's what we call the lowest sphera, the malchus. Then we work our way up through the next 6 spheros, that's called the olam hamidot. Then we work through our way through our das, which is our awareness of our experience, moving into bina, which is our understanding, moving into chachma, which is an experience of bittul, opening ourselves up, which opens us all the way up to keser, which we call the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, right? We mamish say to the highest places. And through this very simple process, we connect everything all the way up. Vizehu ner mitzvah. This is what it means that the mitzvah is a ner. Sha mitzvah hu ner al yidei Torah or. mean the mitzvah is the candle which is able to give off light when it's connected to the Torah or. Ki hachachma ubina, the intellect part of ourselves, right? The experience of understanding and the experience of bittul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the spiritual experience, that's called the Ar Torah. Uperish. Sha'al yedei chachmo bina she'adam machnes b'mitzvah la'ira shu perish Torah Ar, that through the intellectual and spiritual and mind experience that we're bringing into the mitzvah, that's called the Torah Ar. So if you just did the physical aspect of the mitzvah, then you're right, there's no light shining. But when we do the mitzvah, which is ner mitzvah, and it's connected to the Torah Or, which is the chachma and the bina, the mind and the heart, and the different parts of the mind, and we bring it into alignment, then we mamash have ki ner mitzvah v'Torah Or, and it's a state of alignment from Ishtalshalas Ilamas, from Keser Elyon all the way down, from Hashem who's beyond our comprehension, through our minds, into our hearts, into our physicality, into the Ma'aseh HaMitzvah itself. He says something very scary though. Aval balav hachi, but if we don't do it, if we don't allow and make space for the connection of our minds and our hearts to connect to the guf of the mitzvah, ha-mitzvah higashmius v'nifrad, then the mitzvah itself actually is something just purely physical, and it's actually disconnected from Hashem. And Gewalt, right? And you're not able to connect. Ubamehu askashus bayis, and how do we connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Right? Al yada shenikras a mitzvah. We only can connect to Hashem through the mitzvah itself. Lashon latzevet lazeh, right? We know the Gemara uses lashon latzevet from lashon tzavta, right? Which means to connect and bind. The mitzvah means to connect things. So let's just recap what he's saying over here. If I just do a mitzvah and I don't have my mind and I don't have my heart and I don't have all the sinar, all the in-between that's making the connection, then the mitzvah just becomes a disconnected piece of physicality, just like everything else. And gewalt, there's no space for God there, so to speak. And if I'm just in my mind and I'm just in my heart, but I'm not actually doing the mitzvah, I'm also not connected because I haven't brought it all the way down. And then I just have the Torah Or. And our job is to have kiner mitzvah v'Torah Or. Our job is to experience it all together, to bring all the different parts from the physical action of the mitzvah into my midot, which is Yira and Ava, right? Which is first having that experience of, recognizing what am I doing in this mitzvah, and then opening up to the Ava and opening up to the Torah that I've learned and allowing my mind and my heart to meld and connect. And through this is what we call the Sulam Aliyah. This is the ladder of ascent that connects the heaven and earth, right? Some people think that a ladder is meant to climb high, and some people a ladder is meant to climb low. But Gewalt, we know that a ladder also is something that makes oneness out of all the different levels. Suddenly now, you don't have an Aliyah which is separate and a Yerida which is separate, but suddenly now everything is once again Echad. And that's when we bring Hashem through our entire experience and we make oneness of everything. Okay. We good? You can either ask a question, you can text a question, whatever's good. Aval hu al yidei seichel ubina shemachnes ba'mitzvah. Right? The connection that we have with Hashem and bringing Hashem into the moment is not just by doing the mitzvah, but it's bringing the awareness in. Now, how do we bring this awareness in? How do we create this alignment? We're going to go back a little bit. Machmas hapachad v'reses she'achazasu shalei legashim inyan elikis. It starts, the first step in doing a mitzvah has to start with a bit of Yira, a bit of trepidation, a tremble, a shock, an awe, an awareness of, oh my gosh, am I just serving God and making him into a simple physical action? Have I turned my Judaism just into shaking a lulav? Or, is it just cultural? Like, what have I done with my mitzvah? Am I disconnected? And with that shock, fear, awe, you don't let go of your emunah. Rather, you hold on to it. You reach out to it. You reach out to the fact that I am connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? You strengthen that emuna that, wow, Hashem is the one who chose me to do this. It's not me that's deciding to do a physical behavior. It's Hashem in his infinite wisdom. He's the one who chose that I should behave in this way. And when I do that, Shemamshich ava v'simcha shu inyan amidas. Then we draw down simcha, right? Wow, look at me. I'm zoche to be able to do a mitzvah. I'm zoche that Hashem chose me. I'm zoche that I have the opportunity right now to fulfill the mitzvah that's in front of me. And it opens up ava. And we can meditate and we can really think about the greatness of Hashem and how great his kindness is. That Hashem has sent down his splendor or his glory, or the fact that he shines his glory, that Hashem, so to speak, if you want to know what's a person's unique splendor, what's a person's unique hisparos in his life. So wow, Gaval, each person has the thing that they are mitba'er, that they boast about, that they're proud of. What's Hashem's greatest pride and joy? Gevalt, it's the fact that his ratzon comes all the way down, that he wants us as simple yiddelach to do his mitzvahs. His slabshas shchina b'tachtoinim, dafka, that his manifested godliness should be all the way in the lowest places, that we should eat chalent on Shabbos, and that we should wrap a cow's skin on our arms, and we should mamish, just to bring it all the way down. Lekashram uliyachtam itay v'nasa la'achadam edveikas hagamor, to connect and to bring it all the way down, and to do these actions with deveikus. And he says, and it's important to know that aval kol zeh lo tachol ela achar hayir v'apachat chilek nizker. All of these experiences of creating this alignment cannot happen without the first experience of Yira. And this is very powerful. He says that all of your midot that you can experience in your life, so maybe you're going to experience happiness, or you're going to think that you're experiencing deveikus. He says, if you just think, oh, I'm gonna go into this midah, einam amitiyim, they're not authentic. Ki einam misdamim b'dimyono, because they're not able to fully manifest in your imagination, in your koach hadimyon. Im loy shekadma oisei pachad Hashem. If it doesn't, you can't fully bring it in if you don't first have Yira. And wow, this opens up a million different ideas. And obviously we know that we're living in a world today that we're dealing with so much gevura, right? Gevura is tzimtzum. We can call it Yira, we can call it fear, but it's awareness. And we know that the only way that you can ever experience anything is if you first have the awareness of what's going on. We first need to open ourselves up to a gevalt, like, where am I? I can't even, you can't begin to daven unless you first have the awareness of where you are. But the Pri Haaretz is saying even more, is that the kli for a spiritual experience is the tzimtzum. And that tzimtzum is going to look like actual fear. That if you don't actually go through this darkness, this shock, this fear, this scared, whatever we call them like a negative midah, without that experience, you cannot truly open up to the chasadim. And obviously we've spoken about this a million times, but we have to talk about it a million more, that the pnimius of this world is dafka to go into a world of darkness, because for some reason, the only way that I can experience the true greatness of Hashem, the only way that I can experience the true expansion is only through the darkness, is only through the Yira. And if a person just goes and says, give out, like, Hashem, I love you so much, but you don't first work through the inner challenge, you won't get there. It's einam amitiyim. So you have to work through, you have to feel that experience. And only once you have that Yira, then you strengthen yourself in your emunah. And the flow that comes after that by working through this experience, wow, whatever Eza Ava or Simcha or Kol Mida, any Mida that comes down after that, Heima Amitiyim, then you're having an authentic experience. Shel Ruach HaKodesh, it's Mamish Ruach HaKodesh. Mind-blowing. Mamish mind-blowing. I would even say we could sit and we can mamish talk about this and expand it to all the different places that it can expand to. But Gevalt, it's a long piece, and we got to keep on rocking forward. Unless anybody has a specific question, which by all means. And this is what is brought up in the Zohar many times, B'Shas and in the Gemaras as well. That when a person wants to serve Hashem, you have to first have Yira, then have Ava. Ubilti kedimas hayira, without first working and having the experience of Yira, hakol hevel ureus ruach v'lei ruach hakodesh. It's all shtuyot, and it's not real ruach hakodesh. That's powerful, powerful. And now he's going to open it up. And this is what it says, right? Chazal teach us on the pasuk in Vayikra. It says Isha ki sazria v'yolda zachar, and so the pashup shot is just talking about when a man and a woman, that when there's the arousal from the woman below, then there's a Yolda Zachar, it gives birth to a son. And so there's many understandings and interpretations of this. And right now, Reb Nachum Mendel is going to open this up in our understanding for today. Upeirush has Zriya. What is the Zriya that we're talking about? The seeding. Hu inyan hayira va'ava. It's the experience of when you're, so to speak, when we allow something to affect us, when there's a stimulus. Zriya is like a stimulation. And so when there's a stimulus that's coming, that's the inyan of Yira and Ava. Kayedua shebishas hazriya cholim ala adam shnei midas elu hayira va'ava yachad u'mispayim ruchai. And so he's saying from the physical action of intimacy, we know that that there's an experience of all the midot coming together, and there's an experience of Yira and Ava. And the midot all from both sides joined together. And kamavur bazar, like we know from the Zar, that from our own physical human experience, we can understand in the spiritual realms as well that dafka in this experience of Isha Kisa Zriya, that in the spiritual world, when it first comes, we'll see that Isha, we know also in general, is talking about the feminine, which is Midas HaGevura. When you first have that Yira, and that inspires the experience, right? So when there's an arousal from below, we call it. So when the feminine side, the koach HaGevura, the koach of Yira, first comes, and there's first an experience of Yira, then Yolda Zachar, it'll birth a male experience of Ava, and then we know that male experience, so to speak, that Zachar experience, is one of true authenticity, and it's called Ruach HaKodesh. But if you don't first have that arousal from below, if you don't first go through the experience of Yira within yourself, and you just think, oh, I'm having a spiritual experience, it's not a spiritual experience at all. It's not coming from anywhere higher. And now he takes it even more. Uperish Isha, another explanation of Isha is hu mitzvah sheyashchina, right? We know that also when you map out in Kabbalah, so the 6 middle spheros, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Chayid, Yesod, are sometimes all called the male aspect, and the Maisa, the Olam Asiya, the Malchus, is the feminine aspect. And so Torah is called the Zachar because that's the ideas that, so to speak, impregnate the action, and the feminine, which is the mitzvah itself, is the actual kli for that. That is, so a mitzvah is the feminine. So he says like this: V'zeu Isha is a bechina of the mitzvah, which is the shechina, the manifestation of godliness. Isha ki says v'yolda zachar. He says like this: She'im hapachad chala ala adam mina mitzvah shu megashim isa k'nizkalel. If a person goes into the experience of Isha and he goes, oh my gosh, am I having an experience that's disconnected from godliness? Am I doing it just from a self-driven place where I'm just doing a physical action, but there's nothing else connecting me to God, and all God is just this physical action? And because of that terror, that fright, that trepidation, Magia el amidas v'asimcha b'yisbarach. Through working through his emunah, he then draws that experience down, and he opens up to the simcha and the ava. She'amar v'nasar b'tzayner ratzon elyon, that we tap into the fact that Hashem chose this mitzvah for me. He chose this behavior, this action, this physical experience. Shu olam hazcharam v'azikaron v'achayim v'abracha v'hashpa. Right, connecting my physical action with the fact that Hashem in the shoresh, in the source, right? And he gives a few words that we use for a source. It's called the olam hazcharim, the olam of male, or the olam of zikaron, right? Which is memory, right? Because memory also it inspires and stimulates this moment and fills this moment with an experience. It's also called chaim, right? It's the pneumius, the isness of the experience, v'habracha v'hashpa, and the blessing, which is expansion, and the hashpa, the shefa that's flowing down. So we're connecting this mitzvah, and we're not thinking that Hashem is just a physical thing, right? We're shocked. We go through a Yira experience. Is this mitzvah separate? And then we go, no, it's connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Hashem, in his infinite wisdom, he is mamash, the one that's mashpia all the way down to here. Ki b'ratzon bara olam, because Hashem dafka, in the place of Allah b'rtzaynai, in the place of his initial choice, he created this world in all of its physical glory. And every single day and every moment is a recreation from the Ratzon Elyon to the physical experience that we're having right now. The fact that we're using technology to share and learn Torah. The fact that we're having this experience right here, right now in 2023 on 2022 on a Thursday, Erev Shabbos, Parshas Noach. We're here because that's what he wants. And from that place, by working through that experience of starting from the Isha and then bringing in the male experience, that's when shemoilid davar shaloi haya ba'olam klal. Then you're able to be moilid, a new experience that was never here before. And we have to remind ourselves that in every moment, even though there's been a mitzvah of Sukkot that's been done for the last 2,000-3,000 years, and they've been shaking lulav and esrog, but every time that we do it, it's a brand new experience that we're bringing down. And when we create that state of alignment, when we have that sulam, mutzav artzav aroishe magia shemaima, that flows all of the energy down from the Ein Sof all the way to my physical action, it's bringing down a new reality. You're mamish bringing down something new that was never here before. This is mamish connecting to the ratzon that was there before all of creation, and Hashem chose to create it in this way. And now he brings us back to Noach. Vizeo, and this is what Chazal tell us, right? Rashi says, Eila told us, Noach ish tzadik tamaya b'deresav. Why are we saying that, starting with saying this is the children of Noach, and then we're talking about his maisim? And Rashi says, from Chazal, Iker told Esam shel tzadikim maisim tovim. The main toldos, the main offspring that you'll create in this world are your maisim tovim. Shemisham hu moilid gashmiim gamkein. He goes, because that is how you're bringing real spirituality into physicality. Not only that, that's actually how you really bring a child into this world. And if we do the mitzvah of Pri Haaretz in the proper way, with this same format, so to speak, first going through the experience of Yira, recognizing the other, aware of what's there, then having the yichud of Ava. Because if you don't first recognize the other, then it's just self infatuation or self pleasure, right? We can very easily fall into that place on a physical, on a human level, where we're not caring about the other, and all we're doing is thinking about ourselves. But if we actually care about the other, right, which is the bechina of Isha Kisazriya Tchila, and we experience that, and we're focused on the other, and then we're able to have the experience of Ava, of Yichud, and it all comes together. Moilid begashmiim gamkein. That's mamish how we bring down real new realities, especially children, and the actions, our ma'asim tovim into this world. He says, "Sharei mitzvahs periya v'rivya gamkein mitzvah v'yirishayne sheba mitzvahs." The mitzvah of having children be fruitful and multiply, is the first mitzvah in the Torah. And we know that the first of anything in the Torah is really the mapping for all things following. The first time that there's a word that starts with a letter, it means that that's the mapping for all for the letter, that letter, and for all other things that start with that letter. And so the first time that we have a mitzvah, that's the mapping for how all mitzvahs need to be done. And we know, and after that, the tzaddikim, they actually do the mitzvah period virivya in this way that we just taught. By connecting myself from the physical action into my emotions, the olam amidos, through Yira and then Ava, and then entering into a state of das, and then through the Bina and the Chachma, we connect all the way up. We actually can bring ourselves to the place that's called outside this world. And Misham, from connecting to that place of infinity, which by building this ladder, we can actually connect to there. This is not just a spiritual idea. This is a meditation. This is a consciousness that we should do when we're doing mitzvot. And if we do it, when the tzaddikim do this, actually with the mitzvah period of Arivia, they actually go bring themselves all the way up to this place. Misham mamshich achias v'ataylada lavlada neitzer begashmi. It brings down achias from the world beyond, from the infinite place, all the way into this child, into the physicality. And even if we're not fully aware of it, but this is what we're doing, right? Even for those of us that are not tuned in all the time. Gewalt. Milvad mitzvah atzma shenasa gamkin al derech ha'elada. And also, besides the mitzvah itself, it also is the same process, meaning the mitzvah of Peri Verivia and mitzvot themselves, they both use the same process. And meaning that every mitzvah that we're bringing into this world, we're bringing a new gashmiut. We're birthing a new physical action. And when we connect all the worlds to each other. And now he's going to add in another element. It says, for us to be able to truly do this, to be able to work through the entire sulam and go all the way up to this place that's beyond this world, to a place of no thingness, and from there draw down chiyos into the world of thingness, right, into the world of gashmiut. The only way we could do that is with real humility. This can only be done through real, authentic humility. When a person honestly looks at himself and he thinks about his own shortcomings and his own smallness and what the fact that we're not able to comprehend everything. And because of that, I recognize that I have a dark side. I recognize that there's a darkness that lies inside the heart of Yehuda race. And I then get a fear and I say, oh no, I might really make this mitzvah into something that's disconnected from God. And only if I do that, then I can connect to Hashem. Masha ein kain. But this won't happen, right? If I go into a place, hamischased bizgalus, bekol ram v'rasha pnei yosek oisek b'mitzvah sasei. And I imagine if I go and I begin to think, wow, if I don't start off with that recognition of my dark side and of my shortcomings, but rather imagine I start off and I go, look at me, Gewalt. I'm learning Torah, and we're mamish. I'm teaching the Pri Haaretz on Zoom. What a lucky guy I am, Gewalt. I'm so Gewalt. And kol midas v'asimcha sheyagiu. Any of the midot that you experience and all the happiness that you experience, heim einam ella dimyonis kaniskar la'el. Without the humility, it's all feeding your ego and it's all sheker. We're living in a world of distorted ego. If we don't, we have to start with negation of ego. We have to start with negation of self, with recognition of that I have a dark side. I'm not perfect. If we start there, then we're open. Then we're open to receive. It's like Reb Shlomo teaches how mikvah, and the difference between tameh and tahar. Tameh is when somebody's closed off. Tahar is when your mamish open. When you go into a mikvah, you mamish open yourself up. You don't hold anything tight. Right? You make sure that the water can get to all the parts of you. You mamish make sure there's no chatzitza. You're mamish open to everything, to letting go of all your things. Toivel v'sheretz biyada is not also like tvilasai. If you're holding on to anything, we have to let go. And we have to recognize I am Tameh, and I have to let go of everything that I'm holding on to. Or else it's all dimyonos. Because it's all distortion. It's mamish, it's the ego creating a distorted view of reality. B'kol mitzvaysav heim gashmim kulam. And your mitzvahs, if you do them from that state of just thinking that, wow, I'm so great, without first working through humility, they're just physical behaviors. Even if you mamish having the greatest, like holiest kavana, because Gaval, what's your kavana? Because you think that you're a great thing. I think that I'm a great thing. V'gufim belishum chiyas bahem, and they become physical bodies, but there's no life in them. They're just mamish. They're just dead bodies. And mamish brings it into this week's parsha in one of the most beautiful psukim. The pasuk says, "Umayrachem v'chitchem yal kol chayas haaretz," that from the time of the chet of Adam Arishon, through the constant averos of all the nations of the world until we got to the Mabul, the distortion that happened was that, first of all, there was no longer respect for others. There was no gevura. There was no recognition of I'm me, you're you, and I need to recognize that I have a dark side. Instead, there was just chamas, there was robbery, there was rape. People were just taking whatever they wanted. Even the animals manifested this, and they were just there was no healthy familial structures that lions stay with lions and deer stay with deer. Rather, it just became a whole distorted reality. After Hashem cleansed the world with the mikvah of Arba'im Yom, the mabul that he brought to the world, Hashem then restructured it. And if you look through the psukim, you'll see that Hashem says the animals will now go out, lemishbechayseim, each one to their own personal familial structure. And it also says that it turns to Noach and says, Noach, you're going to return to the level of Adam, that you're going to be able to command respect and fear and awe from all the creatures that are lower than you. And the pasuk says like this: "Umayrachem v'chitchem yal kol chayas haaretz." Fear of you and awe of you will be on all the animals of the land. Right? And this is right after the mitzvah that Hashem sends them out, achar the mitzvah of Pri Haaretz. Right? Hashem once again, he told us in Parshas Bereshis, the mitzvah of Pri Haaretz, and then again after after being in the Teva, we know that in the Teva they were not allowed to do the mitzvah of Pri Haaretz, and only once they came out, Hashem restarted it and said, go, and he gave them a bracha and said, go do Pri Haaretz. And right after that, we have the beautiful expression of Hashem says that Moirachem v'chitchem, that your awe and fear will be on the animals. The animals will be afraid of you. And what's explaining? He says that the fact that this pasuk is right after the mitzvah of Pri Haaretz, v'ha'inyan keshetis asku the mitzvahs periya v'rivya ketikun, say there are mitzvahs when you do the mitzvah of periya v'rivya. And all the mitzvahs, when you do them in the proper way, like we just explained, which is lahaktim Yira v'apachat shel mitzvah k'niskalel, to start off with Yira, with awareness, consciousness, awe, umina Yira zu, and from this fear and the recognize of our own shiflut, tagia l'ratzon ha'elyon v'achiyah shekodim habriya shemimena nivra olam. That's how you can connect to a space beyond. You can go back. You have the humility to be open to the infinite. You have the bittul to connect to the infinite. And we draw down the chiyas from this world, this place that we call Kodim Habriya, the place that's higher than the Olam Habriya. And we bring down new life. Umisham yismashech chiyus lavlada noitzer. And then you could bring down new chayim into the vlad, into the physical creation that you're bringing in. Umayra al kol nevram. And then you will actually bring fear and awe to the other creatures. And when you stand up, even the lion will tremble in front of mankind. V'chein hu ba'atzmai. So too, a man himself, behagia lemale min abriya b'yirasai. When a person himself works his way up through this. So he starts off with Yira. He starts off with the physical Ma'aseh mitzvah, and he works into the Yira of the mitzvah. And then he opens up to his Amunah, to his Ava, into Das, into Bina, into Chachma, and he goes back to a place of what we call Kodim Habriya. Manoira hamakim hazeh akal nivraim. Says this is an incredible awe, an awesomeness that mamish comes down to all the other creatures of the world when an Adam manifests his true Adam, being the true Adam that we are. He says, "Kamaimar achrei rabim lahatais." Right? He says that this is also what it means. The pasuk that we lean or we tend towards the rabbim. Right? If we don't know what the halacha is, so we had the Sanhedrin takes a vote and we follow the many. But another way of a drash way of understanding this pasuk is that tzaddik is called rabbim. He's the makar and the shirish. And achrei rabbim lahatais. I don't know where or the etymology, but it's brought down that lahates also means to bring to evoke fear or awe. And so the tzaddik achrei rabim, after the tzaddikim lahates, it brings the awe to the whole world, and obviously not just the awe of the tzaddik, but it's the awe of this is a tselem elokim asa adam. That Adam is meant to be the tzinar of manifesting godliness in the world. And when an animal sees an Adam that's manifesting his true godliness, there's an awe, there's a fear, and it goes, oh my God, it's an experience of God in front of me. That's what we're meant to be. Wow, okay. We're not going to finish this piece. But gewalt, it doesn't stop. So, all right, let's just, we'll continue going as much as we can. And this is mamish how we bring the chayim down to the new birth reality that we're bringing in. He says it's interesting that Rashi, I'll just speak this out outside for a second. Rashi on the pasuk says, "Umayrachem v'chitchem." Your awe and your fear will be on all the animals. And so Rashi says that's the pashup shot. But the Medrash explains that chitchem is from a lashon of chiyutchem, that the aliveness inside of you will evoke fear. And so he says, like, the Medrash says that a dead body, even if it's as big as Og Melech HaBashan, Gewalt, rats are not scared of it. But even a child, a little baby, if it's alive, there's a fear in rodents that they're going to stay away from it because there's a life. It's the life itself. Life itself, and throughout the Pri Haaretz, we see this idea that life itself, Chaim itself, is called before Ma'aseh Bereshis. It's the place of infinity. The Chaim that's inside each one of us, what is it? It's a relationship with a life force that's beyond our actions, our behaviors, our personalities. There's something more to the life force. It comes from the place, it's a nishmas alikim imal. All chayim really in this world speaks to the isness, to the essential existence of who we are. And that's what he's saying, that when a person does this process and climbs the sulam aliyah, the way that he mapped out, through the midot, into the emunah, into the consciousness, all the way up to the Ein Sof, and we're drawing down more of that aliveness, of that isness, of that chayim. Right? Hashem is called the chaya chayim, and anything that's alive, even if it's on the level of domain, so mea chayim medaber, every level, it all has that chayim inside of it. And the more that we tap into it, the more we bring that aliveness into us, that essential aliveness. And then mamish brings umarachem mechitchem onto all the animals. Umashe einkein. However, if we don't connect to that aliveness, if we just connect to the externality, if we allow ourselves to be defined by the simple action of the mitzvah, if you don't tap into to a place of bittul, and if you don't have a relationship with the deeper parts of yourself, there's no need, and there won't be any awe or fear on the animals around you if you don't manifest your Adamness, because then you're just another behemoth. You're another behemoth that is part of Teva. Teva is right. Hateva is gematria elikim, and that's a bechina that it's just you're connected to God by the fact that you are a being, but you're not consciously connected. Consciously connected is an experience of Yud Kei Vav Kei, and that brings awe and fear to all those around us. Amru Chazal. Gewalt. This piece just gets wilder and wilder. This is what Chazal said. First of all, let's pause over here. It's a good place to pause. Are there any questions? Are we all following? Okay. He says this is what it means in Chazal. It says, Noach le'la adam shaloi nivra misha nivra. Chazal agreed, and they said it's better for a person to have been in a place where he wouldn't have been created than to be created. Right? It's like gewalt. It's hard to be alive in this world. Ba'akshav shenivra, after a person was created, the Gemara says yafash shveish b'maasav. He should check out. He should look into his actions, into his behaviors. And the Gemara says, I think it's the Gemara itself that goes, offers a Yiras change, or maybe it's a different Amira, and it says not just yafash shveish, but yamashmesh. So what there's an idea called pishpush in your maisim and mishmush in your maisim. Okay, so now let's hear. Before we even get into breaking it down, Taisvis on this asks a question and says that there's another Chazal that says we have to appreciate our ancestors, because if not for them, we wouldn't have been born in the world. And so Taisvis asks, what do you mean? That seems like it's a good thing that we're in the world. Why would you say that it's a bad thing that Noach le'shalei nivra? We have another Chazal that seems that we have to be appreciative to those that came before us, that we're in this world. So it seems that just being alive is a worthwhile thing. Taisvis answers that it's better to have not been born is talking about Risham, and it's better to have been born and to appreciate your ancestors. That's talking about tzaddikim. Now the Pri Haaretz is going to blow this out of the water. According to everything that we've just been mapping out, now you can understand this Chazal very clearly. Even now, when you're in a state of existence, there's nothing worthwhile in what you're going to do, right? We've just finished reading Kaiheles on Sukkot, and we all know that whatever you're going to do, nobody's going to remember it in just a couple years. We're all gonna die, and after, maybe if we're lucky, they're gonna remember us for a generation or two, and then it's gonna be over. Nobody's gonna know it. Anything that we did in our life is gonna be, surpassed by the next generations. We're not gonna be really standing out. There is one way that we could, right? Ki im sheyagia lemala min hashemesh v'koydem habriya. A person, right? Because tachas hashemesh, Shlomo HaMelech said, there's nothing new under the sun. But above the sun, right? If you go to a place, if you extend yourself to a place called Bittul, and you're able to go outside of your understanding, beyond, right? Shemesh also is talking about your mayach, right? Your understanding in your mind. If you're just trying to think in your mind, we're not going to get anywhere with our minds. But if we go to a place of Bittul, if we go to what it means to be truly infinitely connected to God, right? Going to this place of Kaidem Habriya, of Chaim itself, going back all the way up to the Ratzon Elyon, then you can tap into something special. How do we get to this place? A person should look into his actions and lias mimori de chushbana. He should be a person who makes a cheshbon nefesh. He should go through that experience of Yira that we were talking about. Look at your maisim, look at your actions, look at your mitzvah, and be like, oh my gosh, am I just physical? Am I just doing physical actions? Is that what's connecting me to God? And you should get that Yira, that awe, that shock of maybe my actions are not enough. Maybe I'm just doing a physical action. And then, right, that was pishpush. Then v'yamashmesh b'maisa mitzvah dahashta. Then you do this thing called mishmush, where mishmush means work with yourself. V'hamishmush hu is chazkos b'emunasai acharei pachadusai. To work with your emuna after you had the Yira. The Yira comes over and goes, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Am I just doing a physical thing? And then we go into mishmush. Mishmush is opening up my emuna and saying, no, Hashem chose this for me, and I'm doing it because of Him. And you begin to build the sulam ha'aliyah. And then you begin to draw down Ruach Kodesh and Simcha, and these we said are Amiti. And then you get yourself all the way back up to Koydem Habriya, What's Kaidim Abriya? Another way of calling Kodim Abriya? It's called Loi Nivra. So you listen to what he's saying. When Chazal said Toiv Noach Loi Adam Sheloi Nivra Misha Nivra, he says it's better for a person to be in a state of Loi Nivra, which is being connected to the Ein Sof, being in a state of Bittel Misha Nivra, than being in a state of just thinking that I'm doing good actions. Gewalt, what a deep thing. V'zeh perish Noach Loi Adam Sheloi Nivra. It's good for a person to be in a state of loy nivra, sheyagia lakach, that you should work your way up the sulam to the place of what we call loy nivra. V'achshav shenivra, but if a person's now in an experience of nivra, he's dealing with the physical actions, yagia el sheloy nivra ayidei pishpush umishmush. And if a person's in a state of yeshus, how do you get there? By doing pishpush, which is Gevura, which is Yira, and then Mishmush, which is Emuna, and you build a Sulam, Kanizka La'el. And he says, V'lai kashamidi, it's no question from another Gemara about, we should appreciate our forefathers. He says, V'husha tertzu ha-taisvis, and that's what Taisvis is answering, and this is talking about tzaddikim, and this is talking about Risham, is that tzaddikim are working their way up to being in a state of bittul, of openness, of being connected to being the connection from the Ein Sof all the way down to the physical behavior. But Risham Gewalt, it's not good for them. Yeah? Okay. It's a bit wild, that piece. Okay, it's 3:00, but we'll finish up right here. We're not going to make it through the whole rest of it, but we basically covered most of the piece. He's got some more gorgeous things, but we'll just have to stop here. We'll wind up with this. And this is what it means. These are the toldos of Noach. Perish. Sheloi nivra mimakayim ratzon ha'elyon. V'zeu soid Noach ish tzadik tamai b'reisav sheim ma'asim tovim. Let's explain this. Okay. Ve'ela toldos Noach. So we first said these are the children of Noach. But now what we just learned the Gemara, and the Gemara said Noach leila Adam shalei nivra. I didn't say Taiv lei, it said Noach leila Adam. So he's saying, what's this toldos of Noach? That the toldos of a Noach leila Adam shalei nivra, that the Eila toldos Noach, the offspring of Noach, not Noach the guy, but Noach the experience of one who's in a state of Taiv lei shalei nivra, that they come perish shaloi nivra, that they're connecting to the loy nivra mimakam ratzon ha'elyon, that we're connecting up to that place of infinity of the ratzon ha'elyon. V'zeu soid Noach ish tzadik tamim haya b'dareisav. And this is what it means that Noach was a tzaddik. Gival, what does that mean? It means that the experience of being connected to that beyondness, what's called Noach loy shaloi nivra, that place of being in a state of openness, of bittul, of connected to the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. That's mamish tzaddik tamim haya b'dareisav. It's a tzaddik who's aligned, who's bringing it down b'dareisav. He's bringing it down to his experiences, to his maisim, to the place that he's living, to the gashmiyut that he's experiencing. He says also you could read b'dareisav is means like generations, so it's like a callback to the idea of the mitzvah of Pri Haaretz that we said, like, bringing down children to this world, which is the way of we're doing all the mitzvahs, bringing this alignment. Gewalt. Okay, so we're gonna stop here. This is a gorgeous piece, and let's just do a quick recap of what we're gonna take out from Bezrat Hashem from this Torah. What we learned over here today is that the way to do a mitzvah, the proper way of opening ourselves up to properly manifest and do mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim, is not just by doing them on a physical level, because if we just do them on a physical level, gewalt, there's no connection to God. It's like a guf without a neshama. But if we just are in our minds and we're just learning Torah, gewalt, then there's no connection down to the physicality. We need to have the Torah or and the ner mitzvah. We need to have the physical connected all the way up through a sulam. How do we make that sulam? And he mapped it out very clearly for us. It starts off with looking at the ma'aseh of the mitzvah and going, whoa, is this just a physical thing? allowing ourselves to be inspired by the Yira, that the shock of just doing a physical thing would seemingly connect me to something beyond. There's no way. And what am I doing? And recognizing even my own deficiencies and inadequacies, and the fact that, oh my gosh, look at me, I have a dark side, I have chesronot. That awe then triggers and opens us up to be a kli, right? It so to speak breaks the ego, and it opens us up that we become, we're not haughty and thinking, oh, I'm so great. We're suddenly open. We're open to receive. We're open to connect to something beyond us. And we open ourselves up and we say, Hashem, I'm open to you, that you chose that I should be this way in a physical body with deficiencies, with inadequacies, with a dark side. And Gevalt Hashem, but I want to be connected to you because you're the one who chose it for me. Then, because we're now open, now the simcha, the ava, the ruach hakodesh, and the manifestation of the midot that begins to flow down, those are called midot amitiyim. They're authentic. We can trust them. It's real ruach hakodesh. And once we have that experience of Ruach HaKodesh, we then open up and we build on it with the Torah, or with what we have learned, with the information that we have received from our Rabbeim, with the Psukim, with the Midrashim, with the Chazal, with the Chasidus, with the Musar, with all the different parts of things, and we allow it to build us up, and it builds more rungs on this Sulam Aliyah, this ladder of ascent, this ladder of connection between Elyonim and Tachtonim. And it brings us all the way up to the place where we mamish open ourselves up, that we, Hashem, I don't even know the depths of this mitzvah, but I'm doing it because Misha Amar v'Naser Etzaynai. Hashem, you chose that this is the way it should be. That in your deep Ratzon, you said that we should make tefillin. In your deep Ratzon, you said that we should keep Shabbos. And all of it has been passed down. And when we open ourselves all the way to there, Gewalt, then it creates a full sulam, a full ladder of alignment, and we can do the mitzvahs b'shleimus. L'chaim, l'chaim, we should be zocha, we should be connected, and we should be able to manifest this in all areas of our lives, and we should smile on each other. L'chaim.
Amen.
Amen. Beautiful. Really, really special. Thank you so much.
Amen. L'chaim.